Hello again. So hamstrings and hips go together quite a bit. We will separate them out a little bit. So some of the hamstring stuff will be hippie stuff will be hamstring stuff, and it's all beneficial. So we've done down dog already, but that's a that's a really good just all over whole back body stretch, and including ankles, bottoms of the feet, strength and balance and stuff like that. So we'll start in forward fold, which we went over just a little bit in one of the previous videos. But for forward fold, so you'll start with feet, hips, distance, and parallel, just like we do for mountain. And let me move this a little bit. So when we forward fold, feet a little bit wider, they don't have to touch, because when they touch, then that makes this angle of your legs it's just less stable. And it might not be super friendly for your hips. So if you just start a little bit wider, that's good. So when we fold, soften your knees a little bit, and you'll see, like earlier we talked about, you'll see like this. I can't even touch my toes. So, well, of course you can't when you do it like that. So we think about hinging here. So we send the hips back, soften the knees. Knees don't ever have to be straight. Keep hinging at the hips, keep length in the spine, and just kind of slide hands down until they stop. Once they do stop, and this is a great place for a block, once they do stop and you get to that place where you're really not gonna go any further without causing some kind of damage. And if you don't know whether you're going to or not, it's best to err on the side of caution. But once you get to that stopping place where you naturally stop, then you can take this upper body and roll down. You don't have to. Then you can start to consider sending your hips, like your sitting bones, up toward the ceiling and starting to straighten the legs. But if you feel pull here in your low back rather than in your hamstrings, soften your knees a little bit again and bring your chest to your thighs. So you could even come to almost like a chair, chest to thighs, and then start to straighten. So we want to keep it out of the back and in the hamstrings. Then once again, if you start to feel it in those attachments, like where your leg meets your rear end, soften. And just always soften. So there's your forward fold, and we can ragdoll that by holding onto opposite elbows. And we can find a little bit of a sway. We can rock back and forth a little bit. And then to come up, bend your knees and your arms out to the side. Come all the way up into standing. So we were back in that mountain pose. So the way that you could put down dog and forward fold together in just a little flow would be to come to hands and knees, come into your downward facing dog. So we find that straight line from your wrists to your hips. Knees are soft, hips are reaching up and back. So you're kind of thinking about your hip points touching the tops of your thighs, or like holding, I don't know, a little peanut or something right in that crease of your hips. So from down dog, you simply walk hands back into your forward fold. And then forward again. And that gets into different places in your hamstrings. And we can do it this way too. So we go from down dog. Bend your knees as much as you like. And reaching your chest toward your legs. And walk hands back into ragdoll. Or wherever you want your hands. Props are great for this too. And then come up into standing. And if you want to work on hamstrings in a seated posture, if you just don't feel like weight bearing, or if you've done a lot of leg work already, seated might just be kind of nice. So we can start just with legs out in front, and just notice already how your spine is sitting when you sit. So if already just sitting upright is an issue, or if you are feeling this way, like with this tilt in your pelvis coming back, like a posterior tilt, and coming up is just not an option, and that is true for a lot of people, you can take a blanket and slide it under your hips, and it gives you a little bit of a rise, kind of opens this angle just a little bit and gives you a little bit more freedom. So if you flex your feet, and feet can still be hips distance here too, it doesn't really matter too much. You can sit up nice and tall on your blanket or not. And rather than doing one of these, reaching for your toes, you think about pulling your belly button forward. So again, we still try to keep the spine neutral for as long as we can. Once you get to that stopping place in your fold, and you can totally soften your knees here too. Once you get to there, then you can start to round down. And then I would say, I don't know, hold that for 30 seconds, or 5 or 6 deep breaths. And while you're down here, you can bring your feet apart from each other. It doesn't matter how wide. Don't make it so wide that just by sitting here, you're really straining the inner thigh. So maybe like even 90 degrees from one another. Again, you can keep knees kind of soft. Sit up tall, just like we did before in Paschimottanasana. And just start to tiptoe forward. Stay long, long, long until you get to that place where you don't go anymore. Something has stopped you, whether it's your hips or your hamstrings, and then you can round down. And then again, 30-ish seconds. You can also walk forward and kind of tick-tock side to side, and you'll notice in your inner thighs, maybe in your low back, it might be all kinds of places. But always nice and gentle, erring on the side of caution. And then come all the way back up. So a way that, you know what, while we're down here, we'll go ahead and do this strap stretch, which is one of my favorites. I do it all the time, and I teach it all the time, because it's just really effective and accessible. So lie on your back. And send one leg up. Bring the strap to the ball of your foot. And what you do with the other leg is up to you. So the way that I have my foot, my left foot on the flat on the mat and my knee bent, that feels better to me and my low back. You're always welcome to extend the leg out long. Hang on. That does make your pelvis, so one side is kind of going this way and one side is going this way. So there's a little bit of a twist that happens in your pelvis when you have your leg extended like that. If that doesn't bother you, really feel it. And if you're okay with it and your body says that's fine, knock yourself out. I like to keep my foot flat. And then think about sending your heel up as you send your sitting bone down. So like almost lifting your belly off of the ground. So imagining if you're pulling your belly button up, making a little space in your front between your low back and the mat. That ought to engage the hamstring a whole bunch. So let's do that on the other side. So same deal. Bringing the strap right along the ball of the foot, you can apply a little bit of pressure there. And it might be right behind your knee. So again, soften the knee, send your rear end down and your heel up. And there might still be a lot of calf involvement because you're pulling your toes down. So if you want to, just for sake of experiment, take your foot out of it entirely and put the strap on your heel and just notice where the sensation goes in the back of your leg. And I would say all of these can go, I don't know, about a minute. And then just notice, it might be a little higher up in your hamstring, might take the knee out of it a little, and the calf might even be soft. It just kind of depends on how much you stretch, how much you run, what your makeup is like. And then one more, two more, three more, however many more. So we'll go from that mountain posture. We'll lift up, inhale. Soft knees, long spine. Exhale, fold, and we'll step the left foot back. Turn all of your toes toward the long end of your mat. So you're in this wide leg forward fold. So inhale, lift up. Exhale, fold. And for right now, while you're in this forward fold, you want your toes to be facing forward, and you want to be putting pressure on the outer edge of your foot. Not quite lifting your arch, but making some stability on the outside of your ankle here, actively pressing through that pinky toe edge. And then lift up. Now you can turn your toes away from each other because we're gonna move. So walk your feet a little bit closer together. Not a ton, just a little bit, so you're a little bit more stable. And on your exhale, bend your left leg as much as it will. Lift your right toes. So your left leg is super compressed and bent, and your right leg is long. You can use a block to hold yourself up. Again, spine in neutral here. Inhale across the top, just kind of creep your hands over to the right and sit your hips down. You may be hips pretty far down. Your heel might be lifted, it might be flat on the mat. Your hips might be way up here. It really just depends on how you're put together. So a few of those back and forth. And then you come back into the center walk into your forward fold. Inhale, halfway lift. Exhale, fold. And inhale into standing. So what that would look like if we put all of those together would be inhale. Exhale, fold. Inhale, halfway lift. Exhale, fold, ragdoll. Soft knees. Find a little motion. Release the muscles in the back of your neck here. Plant your hands. Step your left foot. You know what? Let's step our right foot back since we just did the left. Turn your toes to the long edge of your mat. Exhale, bend your right leg. Inhale across the top. Exhale, bend your left. And repeat. One on each side. Come back into center. Turn your toes forward. So you have feet parallel to one another. Exhale down. Inhale up onto fingertips. Exhale down. Inhale up. Walk hands to the top of your mat. Step your right foot forward. Come to seated. Flex your feet. Soften your knees. Inhale, lift up. Exhale, fold. Inhale, lift up. Separate your feet. Nice long spine as you tiptoe forward. Exhale, elbows down toward the mat or find a block. Find a breath. Find a sway. Come back into center, bring your legs together. Roll down to your back, take a foot with you. Find 3 full deep breaths. Bring your right foot down, send your left foot up, 3 full breaths. And come down. And traditionally, I would do a little bit of twisting, and at the finish of all of the practices, I would do a little bit of shavasana, which we'll do in that longer, full body practice. And then I think the next one is hips.